My production camera has given me some grief lately. Deteriorating plastic, typical made in China crap. Let's see if I can fix this one up. This is my small Sony production camera that I use for the vast majority of my videos. I'm actually shooting this one right now on an FDR AX100, which is my more professional camera that I use for more professional stuff and doing my landscape videos and so forth in 4K. But I'm only shooting this in 1080 because, hey, it's a service video. I don't need 4K quality. I don't need to use up the bandwidth to upload it. I don't need the time to render it out or anything. So most of the stuff I do on the bench here is done in 1080 just to save space and save upload time. And, you know, you're not really going to notice the difference anyway, right? But anyway, both my cameras are 4K capable cameras. This is the one that normally hangs from my crane. Say hello to my crane. This is just a tripod that is basically mounted to another tripod. This is the arm, as you can see, it's just zap tied around the handle of another tripod. It's a poor man's jib arm, but it gives me the flexibility that I can move the camera up and down, and then I can adjust whatever I want, you know, how I want the picture to be framed, and I can tilt the camera this way, but just rotating it. The problem with this setup is it's really hard on the bottom of the camera, and this is what I mean. Check this out. As you can see, these marvels that we have called video cameras are actually made out of plastic. At least most of the consumer ones are, which is what this is. And I mean, this was not a cheap camera. This was over $1,000. The one that I'm shooting this on now was more than double that price. But they get the job done, but there's a lot of plastic in them. And what's happened here is, well, you can see the mounting stud that holds the camera is become loose. So what I'm going to attempt, you can see how loose that is. I'm going to just try to fill this in with some JB Weld to give the mount some support so that I can get back to using this camera for my production. At one point, I actually JB welded a big washer on the bottom here, and that worked. The problem is the washer itself, well, it made it difficult to attach it to the tripod because, of course, with the thickness of the washer, you could only go in a couple threads, so it would come off quite easy. So I'm going to try and just beef this area here up with some JB Weld, try to reinforce this thing without making it overly thick so that it'll attach properly. So this is being shot old school, the way I used to do things with just the camera looking over my shoulder, which many people complained that they couldn't see what I was doing, and that's why I went to the other setup. I don't have a lot of JB Weld here. I hope I've got enough. I may have to run to the store and pick up some more because I just noticed that the tube is getting to be pretty low here, but there might be enough that I can squeeze out of here to make up enough to fill that gap. But basically, we just have to mix equal parts. I'll use my pliers here to try and squeeze out as much as I can because this tube is pretty much done. Okay, that should be that tube complete. Now we'll get the activator. Squeeze out everything we can from the activator here. I want to try and get all of the epoxy out of here first before I mix them, because it starts to set as soon as the epoxy and the hardener mix together. So I'm going to try and get as much out of here as I can, and then I'll mix the two of them. Great. And now I'll mix the two together, and it should turn a uniform gray once I've got the two parts mixed. You may have noticed that the eagle's not screaming today, but trust me, he's not gone. He's coming back. He was making noise earlier. Now there are other types of epoxy that I could use. I've been using JB Weld. I find the stuff to be pretty strong. It's got the black epoxy portion actually has metal filings in it, which are embedded in the epoxy once it sets. It makes it really strong stuff. Okay, now that this is set, I'm going to start working this into the actual cracks on the camera here. See if I can fill this space up without getting any into the threads itself. But I want to try and get as much as I can down and around here to try and fill the space and make this thing secure again. This piece looks like it's ready to break out of there, so we'll just try and squeeze underneath here too. Well, that piece did come off. We'll fill this space as well, and then I'll stick that piece back in. No, this means that this camera will never be able to come apart, but if it breaks to that point where it doesn't record, I guess it'll be tossed in the garbage. It'll be time to get a new camera. Some people like to use DSLR cameras to shoot their videos. I prefer to actually use a video camera because, one, it creates a long form recording, so I can leave the camera running and it'll continue to record. All the DSLRs that I've used in the past, they have a time limit and they stop recording when you get to that time limit. And even though that's usually not an issue, I just like the flexibility of a video camera, plus the fact that this thing, I can get this thing down to within about an inch of what I'm working on and get a really good close-up. The close-up capability of this camera is just fantastic.
And the whole point is it wasn't just like, you know what I mean? Or they actually were
You know, the mic's sensitive and it can pick up a neighbor's conversation when they're out on the street. I can barely hear them talking, and here it is on the mic. It's clear as day. Some tape around here might be able to smooth this out a bit. I'm going to let this set up for a while, and then we'll, when we have to carve some of this out, if any gets around the threads there, but hopefully this will, when it sets up, it'll give me something that I can actually attach the camera to and have it stable, so it's not bouncing all over the place. I think that's what was causing the lens to do this once in a while, is that the camera itself was actually very, very slightly oscillating, and the lens was trying to compensate, and the fact that this has got that floating lens, it moves back and forth, as you can see if I turn it on. It's got the lens that tracks. The inertia from the lens moving was actually causing the camera itself to rock, and that was causing an overreaction, and it was causing the picture to shake, so I had to turn the steady shot off when I was mounted on the tripod. So hopefully this will solve that. If I can get this thing back so that it's stable on its sticks, then hopefully that will solve that problem. So I'm just going to get this set up now. Stuff's starting to set as it is. It's already getting hard to remove it from my screwdriver, so we're going to let this thing set for a few minutes, and then we'll be back to check it out shortly. So it's been sitting for a while. The epoxy now is pretty much set up. Hope my mix was good there. We'll pull the tape off it and see how it came out. Okay, I'm just going to let that now sit with the tape off of it so that it can get really firm. Feels a little bit sticky still, so I'm just going to let that set up a little longer. But there it is, all done. As I say, I'm going to let this stuff just set up a little more. But as you can see already, the mount inside here is now nice and solid. So that should stop the camera from moving on the tripod and allow me to get some nice steady shots again. Especially when I mount this in my car. I sometimes mount this camera up in my window when I'm doing some travel videos when I want to shoot 4K, as my current dash cam's only a 1080. So I use this one and shoot 4K on that. And I use the camera that I'm shooting this on as my stationary camera outside. So hopefully that'll free this up a bit. I'm just going to reattach this to the tripod here and see how it holds it. But you can see this is part of the problem. Is this tripod here? The surface of this is rough, so panning the camera back and forth on here is what had a tendency to cause that plastic, I'm sure, to break. It's because this is not a smooth surface. It's designed to hold the camera solid. So I just attach this on top of here like this. And this is my bench camera for shooting. That's how I normally shoot my video, so the camera is directly over top. And of course, then it's got its power supply. I can power it up with mains power instead of using the battery. And my HDMI cord plugs into this side so that I've got a monitor to see what I'm doing. Anyway, that's that. Let's hope that this is going to last some length of time, so I don't have to buy a new camera just yet. Thanks for watching.